I want to welcome you all back to this Citizens' Assembly on Biodiversity Loss. Tá súlagam gur bhain sibh go léir tanmhas an tara agus gur maithagah as bheith a rasin seo a rís agus fáilte chuig ar daoine nua linn aniu. So we have some new members of the Assembly this morning who are taking over from people who can't participate. So I want to welcome them into the room, and no doubt they'll learn quickly how we'll get along in this. Well, I guess we're all learning still in that one. So as we begin our work in earnest for the autumn to build up our expertise around this complex subject and deliver our recommendations to the Oireachtas in December, I just wanted to take a few moments to remind us of a few things that I think are important to kind of set the tone again for this morning. That our Citizens' Assembly is following a really strong tradition in Ireland of Citizens' Assemblies, and we know that the work of assemblies has the potential to make definitive impacts on Irish society and policy. And I hope this will kind of give us a sense of guidance in our own work that we have. Over the summer, I was actually interviewed by people from Chile and people from Holland about my role in this Citizens' Assembly, because other countries around the world are looking to Ireland to see how we do this. And I think it's something that we can be proud of, and it's a tradition now that we are all proud of. And I think that's just something nice to kind of remark on. I hope that we'll be continued to be guided by our principles of openness, fairness, equality of voice, respect, efficiency and collegiality. And I think that principle of respectful discussion and listening will be very important as we come towards topics that might be a little bit contentious over the autumn and the winter. To remind us of our previous session in May, we had an outline and an overview of biodiversity in the international and the national contexts, with talks from Robert Watson, Ferdia Murnell, Taz Crowe, Jane Stout and Ella McSweeney. And for anyone who missed that day or wants to go and review those presentations, they're all on the website. Our field trip then in June, which many people were able to join us on, which was great, brought us to 3 different sites where biodiversity is being managed, and we saw firsthand the work and the challenges that are there for people who are trying to consider, to conserve and to restore biodiversity. Since we met then in June, we held a session for stakeholders, and that was including farming groups, construction groups, tourism businesses, conservation groups, and we told them all about the Assembly, and we encouraged them to engage with us, encouraging them to make submissions to the Assembly, and we'll be inviting those who do engage with us to contribute to our conversations and our deliberations. So anyone with an expertise needs to be in the room, because we do want to make sure that we hear all the perspectives on these topics, and I really hope that those invitations will be accepted so that we can have those respectful discussions that I referred to a little bit earlier. If you want to have a look at that stakeholder meeting, there's a video of it on the website as well. Also over the summer, myself, the Secretariat and the Expert Advisory Group, who were all sitting down the back, ready for your difficult questions throughout the weekend, we worked hard to consider how we were going to eat this particular elephant, keeping in mind conservation strategies. But this is a tricky topic, and I myself was very overwhelmed at the start of the summer going, how on earth are we going to manage this? But I feel confident now that we've come up with a good plan to try and tackle it. And Micheál Ó Cinnéide on our Expert Advisory Group will present that to you. The steering group have seen it, and it's got a thumbs up. So hopefully you'll agree with the approach that we have considered in trying to tackle this issue. I know also that you have all been thinking about this over the summer, chatting with your family and friends and neighbours and local businesses and local farmers about biodiversity and challenges. And I know from some of you already that they've been sometimes tricky conversations, but isn't it great that we're opening up those conversations? I think already the Secretariat are blown away by how engaged the members of this particular Assembly are, because you're already really engaged in the topic. You have read the submissions, you're looking forward to tackling this, and I'm looking forward to the questions that we'll have and the discussions that we'll have now about this topic. I think it's particularly important, and it's come up in my own conversations with you now as well, that climate change and biodiversity, they've been prominent in our national conversations over the summer. And unfortunately, we've seen tensions with that and misinformation with that. And so we're going to try and counter that here. That's my particular wish, that in this Citizens' Assembly, this will be the space for respectful discussion, where we're not talking from the edges, but we're trying to come together to understand other people's perspectives and try to come to an agreement moving forward, where what we have, as I've said before, we have a balance between nature, between society, and between the economy. So I hope that that's something that we can strive towards. There's also a great interest externally in our work. I'm delighted to say we've already had over 300 submissions. Each submission will be read by myself and the Expert Advisory Group and the Secretariat. And we will be making a summary of particular submissions, but I encourage you to take a look at them as well. You don't have to go home and read all of them, don't worry about that. But it is important that we kind of recognise the interests and the perspectives of other people and the time that they're putting into telling us about their perspectives on biodiversity and biodiversity loss. So we have a full schedule for this weekend and for the autumn. It's all to be determined, though. Nothing is set in stone, and we're very much wanting to hear from you, the members of the Assembly, about your thoughts on the weekend. The evaluation forums will be very important. The notes from each discussion that the facilitator and the note taker are taking will be very important. What you say to the steering group will be very important because it will continuously guide our planning. And I wonder if the steering group might take us a moment and just stand up and wave for the people who mightn't recognise you because they're new or forgotten your faces. So if you don't mind, just, okay, thanks. We've Rory, thank you very much, and Sheila, and Anka, Louise, and I'm so terrible, I should have written down all the names, and Daniel, and, okay, sorry, thank you. Thank you for being the steering group. Thank you for representing the rest of the members of the Assembly. And if you have anything particularly critical feedback, we do want to hear it. So you can speak to me, but also you can speak to the steering group. As I was saying, this is a complex topic. It's an interconnected topic, and it's also a long-term concept. As I also mentioned, you know, previous citizens' assemblies have instigated great change for future generations. And personally, for me, I've been blown away by the older generations' considerations of the generations that are coming behind them, particularly in recent referenda. You know, there was conversations that I had with my own granny, who only passed away last week, but she voted yes because she was saying, this isn't about me, this is about the generations coming forward. And I want to put us in that particular space now as we start our work, because I think it's important that we try to be good ancestors. And that's a phrase that I have swiped from the book that I'm reading at the moment, which I'm really enjoying. It's a book by Dr. Roman Krzerneric, and I'm so sorry, Roman, that I actually forgot to practice that with you. Was it? It's a book I'm learning so much from, because the concept that this land isn't ours, but that it's inherited from our children, is something that I do remember from my childhood, and then I forgot about it until I was reading Roman's book again. And it's that image of the oak tree that maybe we referenced at the beginning of this work as well, that we want the big trees for our children and our children's children to look at and touch and feel and smell. And so that's the kind of place that I want to put us into now when we're considering biodiversity loss in Ireland. So I'm delighted that Roman has travelled from Oxford in England to be with us for the weekend and to present to us on being a good ancestor. To give you a little bit of background on him, he's an Australian-born public philosopher, and his books focus on the power of ideas to change society, and I hope it prompts us in our discussions and in our thinking for this wonderful Citizens' Assembly that we're all part of. So please join me in giving our first speaker for the weekend a really warm welcome.